Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the rationalinvestor.co. I do understand we have a bit of a problem with the YouTube page and WordPress screwing up with the URLs. I just went and posted for if you see me do this, they messed up the URL, and it's like WordPress sees this as a wrap or something like that and wants to change it. So all I did was I just took a space from the end of the V and the after the D. So just copy that full address and then just remove those spaces. Hey, my toaster just went off. So welcome back to the show. And I see about 10 people got on there. And did Benjamin or Jeremy, were you able to create a tiny URL? If you did, rock on, dude. You're the man. Hey, there's Innie. Hi, Innie. Oh, man, we're seeing all the fucking OGs coming back here, right? I saw Steven on the site today. If you get an opportunity to say hi to Steven, he's just a harmonic wizard, just beautiful. And all of you one day can all aspire to be any big. Speaking of big, we got the bear in the house. How are you, sir?
I'm foraging for berries.
He's busy foraging for berries, eh? I just had my the toaster go off. You probably heard that in the background. Maybe it's trying to entice you from the other side of the continent. Anyway, nice to see you again. Nice to see everybody. And actually, in a weird sort of way, I think that is an interesting comment. Somebody said this is a good sign. And we're seeing a lot of the OGs back interested because seasonally this is like the sweet spot for altcoins, guys. Get ready. And it's weird. It's always sort of like the calm before the storm. Now, I would say that obviously because of last year and the fear cycle apex and the way Bitcoin went basically from like 3,000 up to 20,000 in like less than 6 months. Clearly blow off top kind of action. Do we have to take a year and maybe clean up the excesses and maybe the seasonal rally is muted this year? That's definitely a possibility, guys. Don't be shocked if that's the way it has to play out this year. But the great part about it is, the technology isn't going anywhere. The interest in the space isn't going anywhere. And if anything, and I know it sounds kind of weird, but you probably heard from Brian before, pullbacks are buying opportunities in this space. That's my 100% wholehearted belief. It's just that, these corrections can sometimes be long and painful and drawn out. And by the time the end of it, like I said, most of the public, they've completely lost interest, but it's interesting to see that some of the OG sharks are back sniffing in the waters. Now, whether they're actually spending their money or not, that's another question altogether. But great to see participation on the site again today. As always, Thomas has a pretty robust schedule for us, so I think I'm just going to hand the reins off to him this morning, and you sort of tell me where you'd like comments from Brian to help you tell your tale today. But where do you feel like taking us first today, sir?
Let's start broader market. What are you seeing in the stock market? Looks like things are recovering from the Italy situation slightly. I don't see a reason for why that is other than some positive reports coming out of the US. Dollar is kind of taking a bit of a pause. Euro, I don't know if I could call this a bounce other than just we've decided not to continue going lower by a full point each day.
God, you're speaking to us. I think, it's interesting how we had commented the other day that you can't chase gaps, right? I mean, maybe we had a Joby gap scenario, but what I'm seeing here, and where the hell's the VIX? There it is there. What I'm seeing here is probably had to, whoops, fudge. Hold on a second. TradingView sometimes does this to me. I'll have to save the chart, and then I'll have to refresh the page. So I can't change that, but what I wanted to show you was on the VIX index, it gapped higher here this day. And it was like, oh, this guy's falling, this guy's falling. It's interesting how that came right on an 8-to-1 level again. Jeez, I'm seeing that more and more these days, guys. It drives me crazy. I still think though, maybe that's not 8-to-1. That might just be a simple trend line. But anyway, I suppose we could argue, Lien setups, one tag, two tag. I don't know if we'd actually say this trend line resolved. But we did have a nice little gap higher there on the VIX, and I think the market's taking the time to just slowly fill that in. I don't, but I don't think, like you can clearly see there's a nice little sort of, and it's ugly, so I'm not going to say it's nice. Almost looks like a megaphone, but also too like a bull flag here, which could very easily take us up to the top of the profile here. There's a bit of unfinished business. And also, too, like I commented there a minute ago, through these crazy-ass cycle apexes, man, you see some weird-ass action in the market. I guess what I'm really worried about is that those cycle guys basically painted a massive double top that forms here. And I suppose you could argue, you can see on the profile, ideally this profile would like to be nice and full. And you can see and it's interesting because there's just like Bitcoin right now just filled in its huge notch. There's a monster notch here that will need to be filled in at some point. But it almost looks to me like on the profile, we got to go up and do some business up here, fill this in up here, get Hogue all nice and happy. And then also too, looking at what's driving the market. Remember we kind of, oh, fuck, I'm showing the wrong goddamn screen. You guys got to remind me to switch the screens over. I think most of that was just nonsense. I don't know where the YouTubers. Yeah, I know. Bob, I see that. Fuck, what an idiot, eh? So where's Mr. Meow? Mr. Meow's not here. Need your help, guys. Keep me on the ball here because I just picked up that now. Fuck. Sorry about that, everybody. All right, let's try that again. Sorry. Okay, and I wanted to show you. Let's see. Let's try and update this page now, and now the whole damn thing's just gonna crash. Oh, see, it says here that there are saves, but try to save this. Oh, there it is. Okay, now it's saving. Okay, so now let's try and update that. I do see somebody or hear somebody typing away. So if you are,
that's me. Sorry.
All right. Okay, let's do take two. I suppose this is one of my first serious mess ups here on the daily brief. Figures it would be today. Didn't I start off by saying that I was going to make Thomas do most of the talking today? What the fuck? Anyway, all right. So we got this, and then I wanted to show you this. All right. So the other day, once upon a time, stock market broke. And we were looking at this VIX index, and we were like, "Holy Jesus, this thing gapped higher." And I wonder, how do I? Maybe I'll just go like this. I'll unmerge down, and then we'll go like this, right? Okay, so VIX gaps higher, and we were kind of like, what? They, don't chase this. If you're gonna work a bid at the gap here, right there. So you can see they're bringing the market back down into these levels. I suppose, what day is today? Is today Friday? No. Yeah, it is Friday, isn't it?
Saturday.
So we probably should also be asking ourselves where the heaviest open interest in the puts is. So CBOE. Yeah, we'll do the spiders. Just, obviously they're all different, but spiders aren't bad. Okay, this is what do we got here? This is the first Friday of June. Interesting. So probably we're not going to see the major fireworks in the options sort of business till the third Friday, which would be the 15th. So that's probably where our pivot's going to happen in the market. Somebody want to write that down? Axel, maybe if you could write that down. So we look at the option open interest. You can see, yeah, there's the big monthly contract, right? Wow, 30,000 contracts right there. That's not even really that much. But nonetheless, just in the short term, where do the Chicago boys, where are they having fun? Today is the first. You can see 13,000, 19,000, 6,000, 7,000. So if we take a good look and see, Jeez, there's some serious money here, eh? Even in this bi-monthly one, that's a bit surprising. All right, so what do we got here? Market right now is 273.42, 273.42. 271s, there's 43. 272s, 25. 269s, 59,000. Cha fucking ching. Look at these numbers. 47,000, 49,000. All of these are going to expire worthless. So really, it looks to me like they could probably bring the market down at least to 272, and I think they would call that a home run. But ideally, they probably want to take it out right around this 273 area. And then look at the open interest just collapses following that, eh? Isn't that incredible? So I think the mark is, I mean, they hit a home run anything above 269 probably. But I think the mark is probably somewhere up in here around 272, 273. Where do we say we are now? We are 273.42. Do you guys see how that works? Isn't that fucking ridiculous? Anybody? Am I just talking to myself? Does anybody see this? I don't know. Oh, maybe I'm nuts. Anyway, so the point of the matter here is doesn't surprise me at all. Market sitting, what did we say, 272, 273. This is, these are the spiders. So they hit a massive home run. Just keep the market up above here. Once we get through this expiry, what are they going to do here? And the market, interestingly enough, I think I told you guys about a month or two ago, we don't really, need to infer anything in the market unless you see like a good 2 to 3% move in the market. If you see a 2 to 3% move, then you go like, holy shit, something big's going down. So, I think what does a world swimming in $18 trillion in liquidity look like? We have to get used to just the fact that, let's see if we can just show you this. What do we got here? A 1% move. Big fucking deal. 1.5%. Oh, that's pretty attractive. 1%. Yeah, I mean, this is business as usual. 235 points. That's the world we have to sort of get used to, that 300-point movements in these indexes are nothing, and it's just a drop in the bucket. So there's that. So we got the options shenanigans going on, and gee whiz, these guys have just cleaned up over the past few months here, right? And I think they're going to do it again here today. I mean, this is almost insulting, right? Now we're sitting let's say they take it out at 274. And this is just today, right? And just even today, 274 right there, bang. Look at that. If they can take it out up here, I mean, this is just embarrassing, the amount of money Wall Street's just going to pocket. Oh God, kills you. So you're asking my opinion, what I see in the market. That's what I see in the market. I don't know. Does that help? See, NASDAQ looking super strong. These tech stocks look like they want to rock and or roll, which is very odd, right? Because, and actually this is interesting because the level twoers, and I'm just having fun now. So you released Brian, and now Brian's just going to have fun in the market. Sorry. But the level twoers, we just did the sector rotation. And I'm wondering, if tech starts like coming alive here, because I mean, this is starting to look very breakouty, horribly overbought, just insanely overbought. Didn't quite go into divergence. Volume, it's okay. Nothing to write home about. But, somebody's got an agenda here. It'd be interesting to go look at where the open interest on the puts are. I bet you Wall Street's just going to clean up here on the NASDAQ. But this thing looks very uppy, and I see a lot of, big tech stocks. There's a guy on Twitter I like to follow, Stewie, and he's been just, one tech stock after another, after another, after another. So what I wanted to show you guys, and I don't know whether I can do this quick enough, but we are into, where are we now anyway? I guess the beginning of this quarter was back at the beginning of April. So the level 3ers are doing sector rotation modeling right now. And we were sort of going through looking at the price action here, and you can do this on stockcharts.com. It's part of sort of, one of our modules that we do. So I guess the point I'm trying to make, and it's taken me forever to get there, is let's see. They have what I think is actually pretty important is they have a where the hell is it? I don't want all this stuff. I just want the free stuff. All right, sector ETF. Here we go. They have this model here, and we were noticing that we were getting, the Wall Street is sort of caught right now. The first 2 weeks study are suggesting that Wall Street thinks we're sort of at this point in the cycle. We were seeing energies and materials outperforming. But through the quarter here, of course, crude oil took a big punch in the nose right here. Interesting how Grim was telling us that his bot is still technically working. But you can see crude took a real punch in the nose. And what did we say? Who's the beneficiary of in the market if crude tops out? Does anybody remember? There's a nice little trivia. Are you guys still awake out there? This is going to test whether you're even awake or not. Hello, come in Tokyo. Who is the biggest beneficiary if crude and energy prices, that's a big hint, break? Excellent, Bob T. Bob T nailed it. So the interesting thing is, from a purchasing manager's perspective, you have a choice. You either spend your money on, keeping the electricity on, keeping the the cars on the road with the gas in the tank, keeping the air conditioning going, whatever. All this shit takes energy. It takes and that costs money to business. So if energy prices are perceived to have topped and broken, then those purchasing managers go, okay, well, now we got a little bit of capital. We can start throwing it at productivity, right? With computers and all that kind of shit to increase profit margins. So the point of the matter here is maybe the market, to a certain degree, seeing tech break out as violently as it is, might also be a factor here too. Maybe the market believes energy prices have topped. I got to tell you, I still believe, and I know it's crazy Canadian, but as I've told you before, there's more oil in northern Alberta than there is in all of Saudi Arabia. I mean, just try and imagine that. Problem is, it was completely landlocked, and what was worse is the Americans were totally fucking the Canadians over on the price that they'd pay for that oil. So, this nationalization by the federal government here in Canada of this entire project, just saying, look, we're going to build this thing whether you like it or not, the pipeline to the Pacific coast, that could have long-term ramifications for the energy industry. So, and it's also interesting too, right? This is the end of the fear cycle. This is the end of the commodity boom, right? So the question is, how do these bull markets end? Well, I can tell you right now, a government saying we're going to spend unlimited amounts of money to bring as much oil to market as possible, that's one way to bring a bull market to end. So anyway, yeah, I suppose you're right. The long and short of it here is the political spin here in Canada is we have to build this pipeline to the coast because we are getting really screwed over in Cushing, Oklahoma. So whether there's nuances to the story that justify the discount, the long and short of it is the Canadian oils, it's getting sold at a discount. But the irony of it all is, as I just said a moment ago, that might actually all translate into putting a long-term top into the oil market. And all they got to do to make the whole Alberta oil story obsolete and completely meaningless is just take crude oil prices back below $30, $40 a barrel for a long period of time. And that whole thing becomes uneconomical. It's a crazy world, eh? Oh, geez, drive you nuts. So, Thomas opened a can of worms asking me what I thought of the market. I just spent 15 minutes wasting everybody's time. But hopefully you have an understanding of what Brian's seeing in the markets right now. I don't know, Thomas, was that of any value to you?
I think it was wonderful. I love oil.
Okay, well,
Let's talk about Bitcoin now. Should we
okay.
see? Should I ask you what you see in Bitcoin, or
No? I think if anything, I'm going to pass the buck on to you. What do you see in Bitcoin? Where do you want to start?
I mean, I'm just trying to find a fundamental driver for
So your
why.
screen right now is Mr. Bluehead to me. I don't know whether.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm on Neptune right now. I've turned slightly blue. Bears actually go to space these days. Hold on, let me get this shared. So I'm trying to find a fundamental driver for why it would rally, and I'm not seeing anything yet. I think that the market is still on hold for the EOS mainnet launch, and I think that's dragging everything, slowing everything down. At least we saw the bounce off of.
That's supposed to be today, isn't it?
The mainnet goes live tomorrow. Now, I saw you tweeted out what to expect from the EOS mainnet launch. Did you get a chance to read the whole article?
That caught my eye last night. I was curious in that. I don't even know if that was even any good or not. Did you think that article was stupid?
It did a good job explaining what's going to happen. And I think that anyone who doesn't have skin in the game and has or a significant stake in EOS probably isn't going to pay that much attention to how the tokens are going to be forked onto the new chain and what the process of how that's going to happen. And I think the article did a really good job explaining that and talking about how things are going to be frozen on Saturday. And I don't have the article up on my screen, but
yeah, I just share it later in there, and I put the link in the lounge if you want it, guys. So
great.
And so just for the YouTube audience, Bitcoin tastes great. Bitcoin, can't wait.
We need to get sound bites so you can just push the play button.
Totally. I totally want one of those, like a total soundboard. All the different, like like the machine gun, the bear roaring and stuff. Oh man, I would so love that. That would be fucking awesome.
But then you turn into Kramer, so we got to be careful not to have you, too close to that.
I never liked, I don't know why you picked that version of the machine gun. I hate that machine gun. There's so many better machine gun sounds. Anyway. All right. I got totally off topic. Sorry about that. Anyway, I just posted that EOS, and frankly speaking, I don't know anything about any of this. It's very confusing to an old dinosaur like me. So, read up. I don't even know whether this article was of value. You're saying it was relatively okay to explain the situation?
I think that it elucidated what the mindset of a trader or someone who doesn't understand the technicals of how this is going to fork and what the exact landscape is going to look like when you go and use the mainnet, or you try to send tokens back and forth on Saturday and you're just like, what the hell's going on? I can't send anything. And you freak out and you say, oh my God, the mainnet was actually as buggy as everybody said. This thing doesn't even work. And then price crashes. So I wouldn't be surprised to see this as a buy the rumor, sell the news event, where the news is essentially Saturday complete clusterfuck of this thing launching.
Really? I mean, okay, so they always say picture says 1,000 words. So EOS, let's see what's said. Should we look at this versus dollar? Would that be the best way to look at this?
Yeah, I just think people are going to panic. They're going to see that their coins aren't moving if they don't understand the process, and they may sell whatever they're holding on the exchanges. But you can't move your coins anywhere on Saturday. They have to wait and freeze everything to make sure that it works. And they're not only, like, the team themselves have to verify that this works, then they're going to allow third parties to do the same thing.
Yeah, well, you can see the line in the sand here is about 7:30, and that's off the original structure there.
There you go.
And then also what jumped out at me was that the whole rally actually started with a Joby gap. So you could argue that if all hell breaks loose, then basically they're just going to bring it right back down to the original starting point, which was like right here. And, Brian absolutely loves those candle body, closes for trade location. You got 3 of them there. Bang, 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 right? That's a beautiful little empire there. So there's a Joby Gap right there, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And wicks and tails like to be eaten. So, if anything, what I would say is, we're not allowed to be buyers in here. It's sort of against our rules. What is going to be the driver to get price down into levels that we can be buyers if you wanted to participate on this? So if anything, what I'd love to see, I'd rather actually see they launch the net, it's total disaster. They dump it, right? But they dump it right into the levels. And then, they take a day or two and go, no, everything's fine, right? And away it goes, right? So as a trader, that's the scenario I'd love to see. So if anything, you kind of want it to land flat on its face because we're not really in a good trade location yet. We need some FUD, right, to actually bring it down into a buying zone. Anyway, interesting. And I was just, and it wasn't, remember we said this just before we started the show. It just seemed like everything has gone very quiet just all of a sudden. Right? Weren't you saying that earlier?
Everything's quiet too.
Okay. Not that loudmouth Beamish guy though. Fuck no, I can't keep him quiet. Anyway, all right, where do we want to do we want to take a look at Bitcoin and are you still feeling like the market is being driven by Ethereum right now?
I do think that the market's still being driven here. I guess we'll start with a daily chart on Ethereum. This is a Finex Ethereum chart. And it's hard to say, right? This looks like it's trying to break out. It's trying to do something here, but the daily looks crappy from an internal perspective. Momentum made new lows. And when you compare the Bitcoin chart where Bitcoin did not make new lows on, we're probably going to confirm a bullish.
Just FYI, dude, your audio is cutting in and out. Is there any way you can kill maybe your background recording or whatever? Can you hear me, Mr. Bear?
How's that? Is that better?
Oh yeah, much. Yeah.
Sorry. Whenever. So
you gotta say, the CIA wants you to have those files of us sent to them daily. So I understand you have to record all this stuff.
It's actually we'll get into it later. Let's see. So momentum. Ethereum made a new low in momentum, a new cluster low, as we can see here, but Bitcoin did not make a new low.
Yeah, that Bitcoin momentum looks sexy.
So we're going to confirm a bullish divergence. I mean, we already, technically speaking, have confirmed a bullish divergence. I personally don't trade on these things until they go above the zero line. And
I'm clicking on Thomas, and I've also shown it's presenting to everybody, so he should be good.
Yeah, we're good. That meow needs to go to the bathroom.
Okay.
All right.
Hey, that's fine. Meow all you want, sir. I love you, babe. Kisses. All right. Continue the story.
Was that Shania?
I don't know. Somebody.
Okay. Well, they're just keeping us honest here. Okay. So what are we looking at? So we're at an indecision.
Weird episode today. Eh? There's something in the air. I don't know what's going on.
Didn't you say it was a full
yeah,
full moon?
I noticed a full moon the past couple of days. And I noticed too, speaking of moons, heading off topic here a little bit, it's not so much the actual full moon pivot, but it's the period right before it and it's the period right after it. It's like that transition. That's the tough thing that really fucks with us humans, I find. Oh, anyway. Where are we here? May 29th. Flower moon.
That was a flower moon.
Interesting.
Right,
so, yeah, we're sort of in that transition-y period right now.
Oh, this must be what they're talking about. Flower moon.
There you go.
Back to Bitcoin. Okay. So we're at an
and Shane says there was a solar flare today, so that's interesting. Oh, maybe that's what it's doing to us. Is Mercury retrograde? Okay, now we're really getting off topic. I'm sorry, dudes.
I think we're in retrograde today.
Yeah. Okay. Once upon a time, Bitcoin's got to confirm momentum MACD divergence. Not enough of a reason to take a trade, but it is an interesting development, eh?
And I think this is the, shall we call it the fork in the road for which market wants to lead technically here. And I think that if Bitcoin moves, if the markets move higher through this, I'm probably going to stop paying attention to Ethereum. This is the time where the daily charts start to take over, and I pay attention to the higher time frames when we're trying to carve out and counter trend rally. If that doesn't
happen, interesting that you mentioned that, because somebody in the lounge just said, well, check out EOS versus Ethereum. So maybe what we see here, oh yeah, so it's interesting. EOS versus Ethereum actually looks very dangerous, right? That actually looks like a fractal top that which could dump us really hard into here. So if anything, I like the idea.
You're not sharing your screen.
Yeah, I just clicked on myself, so it must take a minute to play catch up. But I do like the idea that this ETH event, a related event, why don't we call it that, had us focusing our attention on ETH, but maybe on the other side of the event. And the interesting thing is, doesn't the seasonality go? Ethereum bottoms at the end of the year, Bitcoin tops at the end of the year, and then Bitcoin's supposed to bottom like the middle of the year, and Ethereum's supposed to top the middle of the year. Isn't that how the seasonal story goes?
I don't know. I thought they were all correlated.
No, I think we've seen Ethereum bottom like at the end of the sort of big first week of January. We've seen that a couple times now, and it would make sense considering Ethereum's, of course, got all these ICO tokens, right? It's a growth proxy. So it's very subject to that tax-driven behavior of venture capital, tax loss selling into the end of the year. All their financings, coins, you know, the hold period expires heading into the fall, so they dump price, and the price of ETH gets hit. And then, into the... Pardon me?
I don't see that. I see Ethereum and Bitcoin correlated together.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right. So the point of the matter here, from your perspective, is you're thinking maybe Bitcoin might outperform Ethereum here. Is that what I'm hearing from you?
No, I want to see which internals I can pay attention to. If the markets, and by markets I mean Bitcoin and Ethereum here, if the markets go down, I'm going to have to pay attention to the Ethereum charts because the momentum is pointed down, has made new lows. Now, if we move higher through this and we confirm this momentum divergence and we go up and retest the higher end of this bounce of this fib range, then I'm going to pay attention to Bitcoin, and Bitcoin's going to be driving the bus. My hunch is, and this is my opinion, it's not worth anything, I think that we're going to pay attention to Bitcoin again, because the reason why Ethereum is driving the bus is because of EOS and because of this massive short position that was put on at the beginning of this week. If this unwinds and goes away, there's no reason for, well, not no reason, but the sell side pressure on Ethereum will have abated and the market will be able to move up. And I think this up here, the reason why these shorts are so, the reason, the shorts are so high up here is the reason why the market hasn't been able to rally yet. And again, this is predicated on this EOS mainnet launch. So someone's taking a bet that this thing isn't going to work out, and the EOS team is going to have to dump their Ethereum holdings in order to raise money to do whatever they need to heal the boo-boo.
Could it be that maybe they are taking this short bet on ETH because they think this EOS thing is great and it will work really well?
I mean, if they think that, they're way smarter than all of us, and they think that EOS is going to take over Ethereum. And I don't think that's going to happen overnight.
Well, but see, that's the thing, right? Is that trade, because it's so violent, so big, it might just be like an emotional trade. And here comes the double top, and it's going to be unwound. Some guys just, he's gone and said, "Fuck it, man, I'm going to short Ethereum into the ground. This EOS is going to take over the world." Blah 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 blah, or whatever.
Yeah.
It's
I mean,
almost so big, it's so violent that it almost feels like it was just like one guy who's like, look how big my penis is," kind of thing.
well, you have to remember EOS is holding 1.4 million Ethereum tokens right now, and at 575, that's roughly $805 million if I did the math right.
Yeah, well,
So that's a lot of
that's the
money
thing
to.
is that that's something I have to learn. I used to think that $1,000 was a lot of money. It's what does the world swimming in $18 trillion of liquidity look like? These guys throw around $1 million like it's no tomorrow. It's not that big of a thing anymore.
Well, please keep your idea low because I'm coming. I think I might be visiting you in Vancouver, and I don't want to go to some, $1,000 dinner.
Oh, dude, I took fucking Grim out for like fish and chips, and it came to like $75 or something. So, oh, Vancouver, shaking my head, as Jason would say, SMH. Anyway, I really like your analysis. I think that's a really interesting perspective. So thank you very much for that.
Sure. You want to drive the bus now, or do we want to
No,
go
no,
lower
no.
time
Wait,
frames?
you tell us where should we go next?
I mean, we got to talk about the lower time frames, like what's going to happen through the weekend. Let's take a peek at an hourly chart on Ethereum and an hourly chart on Bitcoin forwards, and then an hourly chart on Bitstamp, and let's get ourselves a roadmap here going
How's our
forward.
buddy Litecoin doing these days? Is
Yes,
he
and
lost
Litecoin.
all the leading indicatorness of him?
It hasn't lost it, but what I did notice last night and into yesterday was that the breakout in Ethereum on the hourly chart wasn't as violent, not as violent, but the magnitude movement wasn't as great as it was on Ethereum. Yesterday, this thing pushed higher overnight, and Litecoin wasn't having any part of it. It just didn't make new highs. It didn't break out of this range. My hunch here is that we're going to go lower through the weekend, and the question's going to be, how low do we go? And this could set up a nice entry point for a rally higher. I do see these preliminary signs of bottoms, and the fact that we're not going anywhere right now isn't necessarily a good sign. But if this mainnet launch goes through and everyone goes, okay, phew, it works, everything's fine, then I think the market has the green light to counter trend rally higher. I'm not saying we're going to go back to, where's our Bitcoin chart? I doubt that we're going to go anywhere higher than 10,000. If anything, the last, here's where we probably are going to go, in the $9,000 range of Bitcoin. If we do counter trend rally, I mean, there would have to be some really strong fundamental driver for us to push above this area, because I mean, there's no way around looking at this thing. If you take a look at the weekly chart, it just looks horrible. This is not a bullish chart at all. When you see tops like this and you don't see any kind of W's, any kind of bottoms, just up and down, straight down, straight down. Here it is again. My fibs are kind of in the way, but you should be able to see you got 1 high, 2 high, 3 high, 4 high. These are all lower highs. We have not put in a higher high on the weekly chart yet. So we need to break above this area in order for anybody to even think bullish long term. That's as simple as it gets, guys. Until that happens, you can't go rah-rah bull.
I do like that I think of the daily chart, 38.2 there is like about 81, 8,200 or something like that. And the reload zone there is about 9,500 or so. 9,300. I like that thinking, but I think it is just a bit early for us to actually call bottoms here. Yeah. And the problem now, hopefully everybody can see, is this is a V bottom that's been put in. I mean, it's pretty violent. So, usually they say V bottoms like to be tested.
Check out this gap.
At the very least, we heading into July, we know we have a fundamental sort of window that's going to be like, oh boy, what's going to happen? Is it, I guess the question ultimately is it going to be like a big FU dump into sort of some sort of low. And really, it's interesting just looking at my screen. And the interesting thing is Kevin. I love Kevin V, man. He's good. He's really good. And he was like earlier in the week, hey, you didn't get 33% retracement there yet on your butt, Brian. Cool your fucking jets. And indeed, he was right. And I was sort of swimming around here. I was short, and then I just took the short off at scratch and, just humming and hawing. But I find it fascinating now when we do those bot levels. Now we're starting to paint targets like 6,000 if we lose our lunch here. And you can see there is the 25 level. And now we can start arguing things like, LJ setups and stuff, 1 low, 2 low, 3 low, any kind of market structure signal on the other side of this trend line is going to fire a short for her. And gee whiz, what a coincidence, just off of this low here, drawn off of that low and that low. I just had this trend line here, and look at what happened this morning. Bang, right into that line. So what that literally tells me is, you can see the double top. The good part about this, of course, is clotheslines. That is a higher high. For the bot to be all nice and happy, there is the 25 level. Really would like to see, a nice little topping pattern here. So that's what I'm going to be sort of watching here. But what also, too, it's going to be interesting to see how the Chicago boys want to go out through the week. To a certain degree, it's almost like this week was kind of a non-event. It's incredible. It's already Friday. Eh? I mean, Jesus, this week went by quick. But can you kind of see that, to all intents and purposes, this is just a big nothing week? And actually, it was really cool. I put on a chart here, and I don't know where, if I have it still on here, but I did sort of a market symmetry. What I kind of thought was how, I remember it's over here. Yeah. I must have erased it. But on both here it is here. Earlier in the week, I just sort of postulated, and this is kind of a fun exercise, if you want to practice this, because, if you can think of the fractal, right? Actually, do you remember what a fractal looks like? You can kind of see that, it's very head and shoulders-y looking. And what usually ends up happening is, the more symmetrical it is, the more serious the pattern. To help you kind of see what I'm talking about, think sort of head and shoulders-y. I'll just quickly throw this on here. It's not pretty. Anyway, something along those lines. And then what I just sort of said was, if it is going to be sort of that head and shoulders-y kind of pattern, then price ought to replicate a lot of what you see here on the other side. So how do you sort of anticipate that kind of price action? Well, all you got to do is pop on the I think it's the bar pattern, and all we're going to do is we're just going to click on this low, and let's maybe go up to this high here, right? So there is that price action, and to kind of do that symmetry study, I'm just going to flip it around. Boop. And now this is quite literally just a mirror of this. And look at what happens when I plunk that on there. Isn't that incredible how it's almost like the market's on like a schedule? You see that? Isn't that incredible? So if this is that fractal head and shoulders type bottom kind of action, and we do ultimately accept above here, then yeah, I can, and I think Thomas was and I'm looking at the MEX swap here. We'll just take this range just for argument's sake here. I did see on Thomas's chart that 38.2 is basically setting up, and this is, if anything, guys, this is a really, really good example of, Ray Burchett would just tell us, look, just cool your jets. Let this 38.2 resolve itself. Now, if we fractal, then we'll accept above the 38.2. Look at this monster notch. Holy crap. And up we go. If, however, and Thomas, when you see a market fail at a 38.2, and let's say we M out here, how do you feel about a market if it fails at a 38.2 like that? Is that kind of a bad sign?
And someone poisoned the barbecue.
Okay. Gives a new meaning to smoked salmon.
Yeah.
Anyway, the point of the matter here is that you can sort of see that this is actually a really, really important juncture for Bitcoin. How we resolve out of this range is going to be huge going forward. If we can accept above 38.2, like Thomas was showing you, I think we got a pretty good shot at running up into the, mid to high. I think on yours the 38.2 is around 8,100, 8,200. That might be because the forwards have that premium, But anyway, long and short of it here is keep an eye on that 38.2, and if we fractal off here, then rock and roll. If we look at the momentum, a little bit concerning here. This is a 4-hour chart. I know Julian's not going to be overly happy when he sees that we had, and I like to follow a very fast RSI, so I'd be curious to see what his slow RSI studies are suggesting. But now I'm actually getting an M and an M, and this secondary M just fired. You can see how we're coming up against the bottom of this channel, and kind of like what we were talking about with Leanne, LJ setups, right? We failed at a trend line. First market structure following that trend line fails going to be a short signal for her. And you can see on price momentum that if we fail through here, you can see how that's going to confirm 2 M's. And when I get 2 M's on my RSI model, that's a short signal. So it's interesting how the price momentum is setting up with that LJ. Again, guys, this is a pretty important little pivot right here. If we ask, what were the institutions doing, you see that the institutions are still thinking bearish. MA, fast moving average below slow moving average. And we just bumped up against the 9-period moving average. And you can see on the RSI model, we did break above this trend line, but we might be emming out here. Right, and if that's the case, then probably going to have to head back down into the shitter. So once again, this is a very important level here for Bitcoin. If we look at the Gann angles, you can see that the lows that we're putting in for Bitcoin itself are right on this goddamn 8-to-1. Look at this. Isn't that ridiculous? This is the stuff where Steven, right? Steven's he's a genius at this stuff. He would be pointing that out. But look at that 8-to-1 level. And for anybody who doesn't understand what I'm talking about, the 8-to-1 angle off a Gann study is like the trader's trade location using Gann. So, I mean, the long and short of it here is obviously the market is very interested in this level. And like I said, this is sort of the number one reason that really got me to be thinking, do I really want to be aggressively shorting here? Because we're also, of course, in like a double RLZ. So, I mean, if the market's going to bottom, this is where it should bottom. Do we happen to have maybe a weekend fuck you to actually come down and finish this funny little AB equals CD? It's an awkward one. Still don't know what to call this pattern. I've seen it happen repeatedly in the market. It didn't ever have its objective hit here, so I wonder if there still needs to be one more fuck you here. But I don't know. Only time will tell. Maybe that's going to be around that EOS launch. And so speaking of which, if we go look at our buddy ETH, and Thomas is thinking that this thing was sort of driving the bus because we have this big sort of ETH EOS event coming up here that's really all about these POS coins, not POW. Interesting battle here, right? We are on the upside of the speed bump. Theoretically, this railroad track signal has fired. We're making higher highs. This is an inside bar, though. If you can see, if this, if the market finishes here today and fires the inside bar, well, the Gann angle, that's going to mean we're losing this Gann angle. We're probably going to have to come right back against this low. And maybe, there is ETH's 8-to-1, but ironically enough, this actually looks relatively okay. I'm not going to say it's an easy trade. This is a huge railroad track, so, I mean, it's a bit of risk. And like I said, if we lose this this angle here, that'll actually confirm an inside bar, and down we go. So, I'm not going to say this is easy. This is a very, very difficult location here. If, however, we accept the railroad tracks and this like flags out, I could very easily still see that counter trend rally right back up into this arc up top here. So, and honestly, I think, especially with these senior coins, when I go through my list and I look at all the different names from this perspective, I'm not going to say any trade here is easy right now. This looks really difficult. But interestingly enough, when I actually go over to this space and I look at a lot of these names, ironically enough, these trades actually do look easy to me. And when I see that these trades look easy to me, that actually makes me feel like these trades are going to be a pain in the ass with lots of sort of stop runs, fuck yous. They're not just the prettiest bottoms yet. But I think that when I see that the capital is flowing into, and how ironic, I find this hilarious. They go and Trex announces that you now officially have a US dollar proxy, so you no longer have to use any of these, stable coins. So instantly the pressure comes off this thing. I thought that was fascinating. And it was interesting too, Tom. I remember about 2 weeks ago, Tom had said, I definitely don't think I'm going to use this as a stable coin, but I really do like the idea of hunting long setups in here. And I think I was really proud and pleased to see him say that, because I've been rooting for Tom. And I agree with you. I think there is a trade here. I think we got to abandon the whole stable coin idea for new bits, but I definitely think that there's a trade here. Maybe we just stall up against the bottom of value, but even so, that's 8,200 sitting at 5,200. That's a pretty respectable little return if you wanted to take it. Anyway, so the point of the matter is that I do see ideas out there. And as I go through the list, look at that cute little one. We bought some of him recently. These names, it's like they're just sitting there. I love this storage. I bought some of this storage the other day, and I was feeling like, oh, Jesus, did I do the right thing? But I really like the look of this. Look at this one. They, the whole, May 420 rally. They completely took it all right back, and now it's starting to turn again. You can see the buyers are coming back. And what I thought was also interesting too, which really kind of made me laugh, was I was starting to see names like Maxcoin on Yobit start to rally. The altcoins are starting to rally, and they're starting to go when Max is back on the long side. I thought that was hilarious. And another one on Yobit that I had that I saw was starting to take off, and I think this thing could actually do really well, is this GCR. Well, obviously, it's probably backed off since I first looked at it this morning, but let's see what we got here. You can see somebody on Yobit's trying to ramp this thing up here. So, I do see names. I do see stories that are trying to form. So keep hunting your setups, guys. I like this market. I think this is a coin picker's market. Look at this cute little son of a bitch coming in here. Right, that's I don't know whether Davo would give that the official blessing, but I kind of see a W there and a W here. I like the MACD, and I like the fact that the buyers are stepping up, so that if this thing can close out the day on a nice positive note. If anything, this is almost like it's trying to accept back into value, and you can see the top of value is way up there. So I really do like this market. I noticed some of the pot coins, they were also coming into levels as well. So. Okay, wow, I sure got off on a tangent there. What are you looking at here, Bear, and what do you think? Should we start winding up the show for today?
Yeah, I think we're good.
I do like Julian's comment the other day. It's like he was kind of like, hey, we're close. We could be turning here. And your chart there, I think that also is sort of the same kind of message. They've definitely taken the fluff out of this market, eh? No doubt about it. What are you seeing on your turtles chart?
We're just bouncing a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, that sounds like a profound statement. Why don't we leave it at that? Is there anything
That
else?
could sum up the whole hour. We're bouncing a little bit. End of
Yeah.
story.
Yep. Yep. That sounds about right. We're bouncing a little bit. Um, Somebody had asked me if I could comment in this video today what I thought about the weekly MACD, and actually, it's interesting that Thomas went on his conversation about how the weekly chart still looks problematic. I won't go into more detail because I think basically he summed it up nicely. But you've heard me talk in the Broiler Chicken show. I still think we're basically range bound between these levels. And on the weekly basis, you're absolutely right. Whoever that was that asked, MACD is starting to give signs that that he's a bit tired. You can see how we crossed over bearishly off of an extreme position at the very top of this daily chart, and this is how that had to play out. Suppose we could argue, just as he sort of said earlier, as soon as we start seeing W's come in on these things, then we'll know we're ready to rock and roll. Nothing really too definitive right now. Then if we zoom out to the weekly chart, we see that, oh boy, well, you can see top of the market, and actually the moving average just crossed here and went sort of negative, and so we've had to go through this. Interesting, if we actually dump here and make new lows, that might actually start forming a pretty powerful divergence. But as it stands right now, we should be looking at this chart. And actually, this is kind of a fun little tutorial for MACD. I did a study years and years and years ago, and I found that MACD likes to move in like 4s, 8s, and 12s. So if you go like, say, the peak of this MACD and you count out 1, 2, 3, 4. In this particular case, it was 5. Maybe even say, okay, well, the peak is there, so we'll start our count on the next bar that after the peak. So there's 4 to the 0 line. Then we can count out here 1, 2, 3, 4. So I suppose you could argue, I don't know exactly where we made the bottom. All right, somewhere in there. So 1, 2, 3, 4 into that pivot. You can see this bounce 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? It's incredible how this works. So you can often gauge, and then if you have like a move that goes beyond 4, then the next sort of count you do is to 8 and then to 12. And you should look for pivots. So, we had this move off of this sort of low here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to that pivot. So you can see that that's maybe getting a bit old. Maybe we even go off of that breakout there. Tough to say. But the point of the matter here is you can see that we just rolled over. We made a lower low. If anything, at the very least, we should be thinking, right, 1, 2, 3, 4. So some sort of pivot on your MACD here. And then, of course, if that doesn't hold, then we should be thinking 8. So our next sort of pivot window on the MACD study should be somewhere like in this area in here. So I'll be keeping an eye out for that. Kind of a fun little side tutorial. I don't even really teach this in class. It's it's one of these sort of subtleties, of charting. Charting's more of an art form than a science. You're going to have sometimes it doesn't do 4, kind of like this one, it did 5, right? But nonetheless, it's a handy little sort of reference, guys, that if you see the market moving in any one particular direction, do the 4, 8, 12 study to try and give you an idea of how old the cycle move is. And the interesting thing with this is some people call this a MACD kiss. So you can see here back when we were a bull, the kiss from the upper came back, kissed the slower moving average, held the 0 line, and resumed the trend. And the kiss resumed the trend. You could go 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And so 4 bars into this, looking for the kiss, look for any sort of bullish resolution here to take the next leg. So we just had the exact opposite scenario where we rallied up. You could argue this is a potential kiss, looking for short setups through the top here, and then you start your count, right? So I think that makes sense, what I'm seeing on the MACD. And then they just sort of asked, well, Brian, could you make a comment about the monthly MACD, how it's just starting to do this cross? So I don't know whether this is going to erase. I'll just manually do it. So you could argue, 4 weeks is 1 month. So maybe, 4 months is like a quarter. Suppose if we started our count, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 5 back to 0. If we do just go straight down, actually that says 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, 4 to 5. That would actually explain that. But if anything, I wouldn't mind seeing some sort of check here. Coming out of that, we might, and I've seen this happen before, where we've crossed the 0 line, and we might have to go 1, 2, 3, 4 to ultimately find that low. And is this just a kiss, right? We're still going to have to figure out whether we actually have crossed monthly bearish yet, or whether this is just a kiss event, and we ultimately bottom and continue higher. So somebody just asked me to make some comments about that. That's sort of what I'm thinking about. And of course, if this kiss resolves bearishly, we cross, that was going to mean that we're going to go 0, and we probably should count 4 months out here for that event to play itself out in the short term. All right. Hopefully that helps you. It's an interesting conversation. Okay, got this bullish bot on Litecoin fired, but it is very on the limit. But I guess I'm playing it right. Chart. Okay, right is always, like I said a few minutes ago, charting is more of an art form than a science. I don't know whether this high actually looks higher than that high, so be careful on drawing your levels. This is an initial bottom. There is a counter trend rally here, which might have set up like an aggressive trade to get long through here. Sometimes I like to front run the bot. Did the market come up and hit move stop to scratch level here? Ooh, that's a tough one. And then we've gone and M'd out here. If we did hit this move stop to scratch level, then that technically means if we come back to the 25, you should just walk away. And notice that basically that's, that is the trade entry. And I find it interesting that this set up right off of that level. I see you've noted here 3 lows. The only problem I have with all of this is, did that move stop to scratch level get hit? If it did, I'd probably say, you know what, I'm just going to leave this one alone. If it didn't, then I suppose, you could argue hunting a trade setup off of this 25 level isn't the worst idea. Is this low higher than this low? I don't know. That's a tough one. So if anything at this point, maybe, if you are committed to taking the trade and you're hunting, at least you see the levels clearly. And, maybe do a reload zone off of this range to try and sneak in off of a test of this low. I definitely like the idea that there's key support against that low, that low, that low, that low there. If you're going to work your stop down here, you've got lots of defense. And on balance, this is one of these ones I would say, probably the internal indicators aren't extremely supportive of either one way or the other here at the moment. So probably, toss of the coin, 50%. The good part about, these kind of trades is if you are right, you're going to make $3. And if you're wrong, you're going to lose $1. So, if it's even a coin toss, those are pretty good odds. You can run a pretty nice little business off of that. So, it's interesting. If anything, I'm almost thinking LJ, RJ setups, 1 high, 2 highs, 3 highs. Give me some sort of structure on the other side of whatever that trend line is. And if that's set up off the 25 level, even a double bonus. This is, you know what, this is, I would say this is the kind of trade where, you know, like I said, if you're right, you're going to get paid nicely relative to if you're wrong. It's a trader's life. Can you be comfortable being uncomfortable? Because that's really the question on a lot of trading. And when I did my best prop trading, I really didn't know what the fuck was going to happen. You know, I went one period, 9 profitable days out of 10 was probably my best trading. And I didn't know day to day whether the setups were going to work or not. The setups just came in and, you know, it was my trading plan. I was committed to the plan. I just took the trades. And it's a weird thing being in that kind of headspace. So, you know, if you are a veteran bot trader, I think you got to have the trade on, just live with the results. Just see what happens. So whoever asked about that, good question. And at the very least, you, who is this, Miguel? I want to hear that you're going to journal the shit out of this. Okay, we kind of jumped over a whole bunch of people's requests here. It's 10 minutes past the hour, so why don't we just take another 10 minutes or so and look at a couple of these other ones. So somebody's asked about SALT on Binance. I think, honestly, guys, we're heading into the type of market. It happens about 2, maybe 3 times a year. Yeah, same thing here. I think these are the types of markets that, you know, if you can just build a plan and force yourself to step in and buy against lows, you know, probably the odds are you're going to make money if you can just hold on to these for a couple months. So on balance, I look at a name like this, considering where we are seasonally, this is basically right in the wheelhouse. Divergence has been confirmed, so that's encouraging. Willie is stupid. You could argue that with these 2 criteria, we could actually start hunting El Tangonator setups. And usually I like to see that the structure comes in after the divergence has been confirmed. So we could argue the divergence was confirmed here. So if we can get any sort of W or something to work with here, I think that'll set up an awesome trade. I do also like the fact that they pulled a nice little fuck you. And notice that the reversal off the fuck you move, that's pleasant, just so happens to be right against those key lows. So obviously this is a pretty important level for the market. So I don't really have a problem with going and buying some of this. You're buying below value. Looks like even, you know, purchases down in here. To get a double off, probably a nice little move up into this area, which I think, you know, into the spring, summer is completely realistic. So not a bad idea. Actually, really good. This is a good example, guys. Axel, what kind of divergence do you see happening here? Is Axel still here? Yeah, there he is. Slacker. How about Shane? All right, maybe let's ask somebody who is new to the site, if they even know. There's Kasia again, but I totally butchered your pronunciation of your name. Is it Kusha? You sent me a private message. Brian, you pronounce it this way, but I don't know whether you guys see. Look how many private messages I have to go through after I'm done with you guys. So I apologize, but anyway, long and short of it here is this is I'll just refrain from saying your name, and then that way I won't embarrass myself. But this is a really good example of a OBV divergence. Really, really good example. So clearly there's a big disconnect here. Whenever you see price go to new lows, but OBV not go to new lows, something's fishy is going on here. So if this little W in OBV can confirm, wow, is that ever going to be a big buy signal? And from what I heard, I think the general consensus is that they like this story, the SALT loans and all that kind of stuff. So my hunch is this thing will be back in vogue. So not a bad idea at all. I prefer sugar loans. All right. Okay, you know, on that note, why don't we leave it at that? Let's call this the idea of the day. Nanny nibbles, definitely doable. Looks like even have railroad tracks. You got a nice MACD divergence trying to come in here. You got Willie Stupid, and we got this OBV div. That's a pretty good idea. All right, so on that note, you all have yourself, we'll call this the idea of the day. You all have yourselves an awesome rest of your day. Today's Friday, so actually, yeah, I think we'll probably do a video on Sunday. I'll take tomorrow off. I think Thomas and I have given you the levels to watch for here on good old Bitcoin. And, of course, we got the big fundamental event. If anything, you know what? I would prefer that we have a dump into the event, and then that pivots the market, and then a nice rally on the other side. So in a weird sort of way, I actually kind of like to see Bitcoin and Ethereum come off here a little bit right now. And then that would be like sort of sell the rumor, buy the news. I think that would actually be the best scenario here. But anyway, only time will tell. Okay, guys, you have yourselves a great rest of your day. All the best, and bye for now.